Instagram has confirmed some massive platform changes in the recent weeks.
And these changes affect everyone. So what do we do?
We're here to break down what you need to know about the algorithm, along with a few changes that you can consider in response.
Let's dive in.
Well, hey there, and welcome to the Bro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. We call him Father Fullback. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello, hello.
And today we're talking about the sweeping changes that are taking place on Instagram and abroad. Other platforms seeing these changes as well. And, you know, it's always great when Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, comes into the replies on Threads, does a Q&A session on the gram, and answers the burning questions that we all have about these platforms and about the state of social media. So a person asked on Threads a couple of weeks ago, less of a request, more of an exasperated declaration. They said, like, please, Instagram, I just want to reach my followers. It's okay if I don't reach a bunch of new people. Please, let me just reach my followers. And here is what Instagram, head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, responded with, quote, "It's the hardest thing for us. We want creators to reach as many people as possible. But there is way more content that the average person could see each day, even just looking at content from accounts they follow, than they have time for. Some don't open the app every day. Others don't scroll in their feed. Others don't scroll very far. People blame ranking, but ranking meaningfully increases the amount of content people see, in turn, significantly increasing reach for the average creator." So what he's describing here is an imbalance between supply and demand.
That's right.
Basically, there is way more supply on Instagram than there is demand for that content. And it makes sense why we would have arrived at this place, because in the pandemic, there was a lot more demand.
Yeah.
But even pre-pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, there just weren't that many like creators on social media.
Right, but everyone learned how to bake sourdough during the pandemic, and now we have a bunch of sourdough influencers.
That's right. And we've had a whole generation now that has grown up on social media and is native to creating. They're all in their 20s now. A lot of them are aspiring to be influencers or creators in some respect as a side hustle or aligned, woven into their job or vocation in some way. And suddenly there's all this supply. And even if demand had just stayed stagnant, there's the imbalance.
That's right.
And so what Mosseri is describing here is this person is asking, okay, I get it. I just want to reach my followers. And he's saying, okay, open your Instagram right now, Alex, and tell me, how many people do you follow on Instagram?
421.
I follow 427.
That's crazy.
That's true love right there. 427. Now let's imagine that those 427 people were posting, I'm not even going to say every day.
Right.
I'm going to say every other day. Because some of those people are my friends, and you know, they're not using social as frequently, but a lot of them are creators that I enjoy following.
Yeah.
So let's say that's 200, rounding down, new posts every single day. I am a heavy user of Instagram. I am confident that I do not see 200 new posts every single
Certainly
day.
not.
So what that means is, if we restricted the algorithm to just people I follow, I wouldn't see their content. And what would happen is, if it was shown chronologically, is you would have a post that maybe got like very, very little traction, because as Mosseri is describing, like, people aren't opening the app every day. They're not scrolling every day in the feed. Maybe they're going straight to like DMs. We know how much messaging is a big part of Instagram. I can't tell you how often I open Instagram and swipe straight
Absolutely.
to the DMs. I'm not even scrolling in feed at all.
Never.
So what do you do then if you're a platform? Because people want to reach their followers. And what Instagram has discovered, and every platform has discovered this since the advent of discovery algorithms and ranking as distribution, not just relationship, we have to look at positive signals and what you care about and your viewing habits, and then create a personalized distribution feed for you. Otherwise, creators actually won't see anything in their metrics, because the demand just isn't great enough to see distribution at scale in that way.
I appreciate Adam Mosseri so much on Threads and on Instagram, because he seems to have the courage to like really pull back the curtain and answer people's like pointed questions very openly and very honestly. And what we get from this interaction is this insight when, and it's not just restricted to social or Instagram, but like it happens often where a user of something, a consumer of something, has a very strong opinion about how the platform should work, how the product should exist, and they have a very strong opinion that is centered on their desires. Yet the actual reasons why the platform works this way or the product is this way is because of all the insight that the creators of the product or the platform actually have. And so here we have Adam saying like, I hear you, but what you are probably not considering is this supply versus demand thing, that there is too much content to just show it this way. So we have to do it this way. And it actually is advantageous to you as a creator for us to do this. And this is the reason why. So, you know, this question from this user on Threads is the pain point that not just creators feel, but certainly churches feel. So how does this intersect with what churches are trying to accomplish on Instagram in particular?
Well, if you are a church, you surely are familiar with the dynamic that Alex is describing, because people have come up to you after service and be like, yes. You know what we should really do, Pastor? We should do this.
That's exactly it.
Or they'll criticize what you're doing. Like, why are you doing it this way when it would obviously be superior if you did it this way? And you're like, yes, I understand on the surface, like there's merit to what you're saying, but if we pull back the layers, you would understand that we can't do it that way because there are these realities that exist. Same dynamic. In terms of how this affects churches, for years, using social media to publish time-sensitive updates was a priority for churches because it was a way to disseminate information to the people that needed it most.
This is back in the chronological feed days.
Yeah, and we're going to get into like actual steps that you can take here as a church, but this is why we discuss the phenomenon, the no promo code, which is if we understand the ranking signals of the algorithm to be as important as they are, and really the gatekeepers to whether people see our content or not, we have to understand the behavior of users and align with that. If we purposefully create content that is antithetical to the desires of the platform, which are really just a proxy for the desires of the users, then we can't then look at our metrics and say like, why are they not working the way we want them to? Now, the reality is, and this is the discouraging part of this cycle, is that you can do everything right and still see performance in a decline relative to maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this with our own content, where the exact same creative effort, even improved creative effort in our content, is not producing the same outcomes as predictably as before. And this is kind of like just the life cycle of social platforms. It's the life cycle of many industries. We see this with supply and demand in real estate, right? You hear about a buyer's market or a seller's market.
Sure.
It's the same thing. Another algorithm change that I wanted to highlight. Now, this change isn't so much a change, more as an acknowledgement of something we've believed to be true, that now Instagram has said, yes, it's true, and here's why it's true. So we're going to play this part of a Q&A with Adam Mosseri, where he talks about the dangers and fallout of taking extended breaks on Instagram in terms of your church's publishing.
It is true, and we're trying to make it not so, that if you don't post for a month or two, coming back in can be rough, and that is not intentional. That is a byproduct of the fact that we have less data after you've been gone for a month or two, and we're trying to address that. But in general, I would try and experiment with different cadences and see what works for you.
Anecdotally, this makes sense, especially in a landscape where supply is outpacing demand.
Yeah.
If you have creators that are going to be inconsistent with their publishing, and then you have other creators that are diligent and showing up with that no weeks off approach that we suggest for churches. And again, no days off is not necessary. No weeks off. In this same Q&A that we'll have linked in the show notes that has other questions, people ask about posting frequency, and Mosseri says, look, there's no hard and fast rule for this.
Right.
Some creators, multiple times a day is ideal. Other creators, a couple times a week is ideal. What is your industry? What is your audience like? And so for churches, that no weeks off approach is critical. 2, 3, 4 times a week, great. Settle in there. You don't need to be posting every single day. But it's these extended breaks of weeks that will reset your distribution. Why? Not necessarily, interestingly, as Mosseri is describing.
He says it's not intentional.
Right. It's like, ideally it wouldn't be this way. But if we're living in the world of a ranking algorithm and you disappear, the ranking algorithm demands data to determine distribution. We're looking at these positive signals between what you're doing and how users are interacting with your publishing. If you don't have any data, then you are going to be downgraded.
Yeah.
Because we can't predictably serve content that we know users will be happy about. And at the end of the day, that's the job of the algorithm.
It's that same thing, right? Like there's been this sentiment from folks who aren't consistent with their publishing and they feel that they're being punished. I hear this phrase a lot, like, oh, I'm being punished by the algorithm for A, B, and C. And what the actual truth is, if we believe Adam Mosseri, which I happen to, he's saying it's like, no, we're not intentionally punishing you. This is just like a data disparity. We just don't have enough from you to prioritize you properly. And so that's why we've been saying for years now, the ideal posting schedule for churches, not just churches, but creators in general, is to do whatever you can to take no weeks off and post high quality content once a week, if that's all you can muster. But don't take any weeks off. And now, thankfully, Adam comes out and basically affirms what we've been saying, which is like, yes, this is how this ranking system works, and acknowledging that we're trying to make improvements in this area so that, there isn't this unintended fallout or punishment. But the way it is right now, post consistently high quality content, and that will keep you in the good graces of this ranking system.
And to be clear, I am very skeptical that they would be able to put in measures that allow you to take extended breaks and it not affect distribution. I think that they say, we're trying to make it not so. When I see it, I'll believe it. But color me very, very skeptical on that.
It's a content platform, right? They don't want you just to consume. They want you to create also. So they're going to prioritize hey, post high quality stuff on here.
Yeah, every call I have with a church, I had one with a pastor yesterday. I said, hey, this no weeks off rhythm is what matters the most, because for us to see posts that are outliers, that introduce your church to new people, and for those posts to welcome in new followers that then allow us to grow, that then enable these crossover events where in-person is being invaded by online and the efforts that we're expending there, we have to be showing up week after week. It's this singular non-negotiable of social. And I said, look, imagine you had Sunday services for 3 months and you took a month or 2 off. No Sunday services. And then you came back, Sunday services are back on. That would be no way to build a church, because you wouldn't have these habitual rhythms with the congregation. And the same is true for social. The ranking algorithm, the signals that they look at often are, how are you, the creator, in connection or relationship with this specific user? Oh, that specific user liked your post the last time you published? Okay, guaranteed we're going to show your next one to that person as well. And so if that data disappears, now, where is the relationship? You have a relationship with nobody in the last 3, 6, 9, 12 weeks.
Yep.
That history is gone. So what can we do if this is the new landscape? I think the first part is understanding the life cycle, okay? This is the down part of social. This has happened 2, 3, 4, 5 times in social media's history, where there's just this saturation with the current state of things. Every time this happens, innovation follows.
That's right.
And these new opportunities arise. We can never predict when that's going to happen or how it's going to happen. When it does, I promise you, we will be on this show shouting it and saying, please go to this platform. We did it with TikTok in 2018.
That's right.
And what was the initial response? That's just a dancing platform? How do you publish there? You open up the feed. This is not what social media is. Social media does not look like this. And there were years where churches did not take that seriously. And then what happened was, it was such a pervasive new way of doing social that it was copied and pasted into every single platform.
Yeah.
And now that TikTok experience is not just an experience that you'll find on other platforms. It is the default experience.
It is.
And so the reason I say that is not to say hey, every church, you should have been on TikTok, because there were other considerations that went along with TikTok. But what will happen is innovation will occur. It will look different than what you're used to. Most people will write it off for that reason. They will assign the difference to some type of negative moral trait. And then the opportunity will exist because not everyone will go over there, and we'll repeat this cycle.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of opportunity that will be coming. Right now, what do? First thing you can do is publish higher quality content. So if you imagine that there is this greater supply than the demand is asking for, how do you rise above? And I want to show you a video on the screen, and we're not going to play the audio, but if you're seeing it right now, I'll describe it for those listening. This was a reel that was created by a chef, and lots of content exists in the world of cooking, right? This chef particularly made this amazing cinematic video where he took this potato and turned it into this crazy dish. And it's just unlike most videos you'll see. And a person asked him in the comments, they said, how long does this take? He's 6 hours of filming, 20 hours of editing. Because it was just this monster.
Yeah.
And so if you're that person and you are creating that much, what are the desired results? Okay, you can only create that video once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, but it's going to do such big numbers.
That we're going to talk about it on this church social show.
And in the aggregate, you're publishing fewer posts, but the quality is so much greater that your results in the aggregate are better than they were before. So that's like one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is increasing quantity. And the perfect example of this is someone like Alex Hormozy or a Russell Brunson or even Sean Cannell, our friend over at Think Media. These creators that are just ubiquitous on every platform, and they're publishing so much content. The volume is just massive.
It's not low quality though.
No, it's not low quality. But interestingly, if you look into any one of their individual posts, it's always a bit stark because you'll look at their followers and you'll be like, okay, there's like 7 figures of followers. And then you look at the numbers and you're like, oh, those engagement and view numbers are not that much. You're like, they must be doing something wrong. But then it's like, no matter what platform you go to, they're there.
Yeah, it's just a different strategy.
Exactly. And so when you look at the aggregate numbers for them, they're playing the volume game where they're not really counting on any singular post to drive all their results. They're saying, we're just going to keep having all these at-bats.
Yeah, and you can't escape us.
strikeout, bunt, single, double. Oh my goodness, we ended up having more runs than the other team yet again.
Yeah.
And so that's an approach that you can take. And then, of course, like those are the two extreme ends of the spectrum. There's some hybrid measure where you can look and say, okay, my church is publishing 3 times a week. What I'm going to do is push that to 4 or 5, and we're going to work to improve the quality of every post 20 to 30% over the next year. And then combined, that will help raise your distribution profile. I was talking with the church last week. We were reviewing their first 60 days of working together at Social Sermons. And this pastor was saying, hey, we are not seeing like our per post, like they're not like going crazy. And I was like, you're right. But if we look at the aggregate numbers over these 60 days, your impressions and views and engagement are up 100% because not any single post is doing any crazy amount. But what we're seeing is in the aggregate, the numbers are greater. We used to talk about viral for me posts, the objective being 3 to 5% of the overall posts that you publish, hitting that threshold.
Yeah.
Viral for me being 10x the distribution of a normal post of yours. So if you're normally getting like 200 views per reel, a 2,000 views per reel would be a viral for you post. And take that multiplier and put it on you.
Yeah.
3 to 5% is a bit unrealistic in today's landscape. Why? Because of the supply and
Saturation,
demand. Yeah, that's just the realist part of me. So we're talking now like, a tenth of that, like 0.3 to 0.5%, or like, 0.5 to 1.5%. We're kind of in that area. And so what that means is like, you just aren't going to be able to grow as fast. But if we increase the quantity and we increase the quality, and it can be like whatever you think. Like if you're more of a quantity person, go for it. If you're more of a quality person, go there. Whatever kind of the ratio is between the two, we can in the aggregate improve our distribution and improve our numbers that way.
And back to what we talked about earlier about the ranking system, that serves to position you better in the ranking system, right? If you increase your quality, or pardon me, your quantity, you're posting more often and maybe they're not regularly going off, but like folks are regularly engaging with them. That positions you better in the ranking system for when a post does go viral for you. And we've talked about it so many times on the show in this context. For churches, the point is not going viral for viral sake. The point is we're sharing the greatest story ever told that holds what we believe to be salvation, right? Like saving power. And so the point to go viral is to share this message that we tell of Jesus with more people than we could ever imagine. The point for a chef is to maybe get more eyes on their side hustle. I watched a video yesterday of a chef who started on TikTok and now has like this sandwich shop in New York City that sells out every day. And it's because he figured out what he talks about it explicitly in this video. He figured out his formula for viral cooking videos. He spells it out exactly how he can construct a viral cooking video. He did that for a few years, and now that has the ends to that effort is now he's got this successful sandwich shop, and that's great for him. But for churches, we're not just trying to go viral for viral sake. The point is we want to share this message of Jesus with a broader audience, and pursuing either one of these strategies, I guess there's 3, right? There's the higher quality on one end of the spectrum, there's higher quantity on the other, and then there's this kind of middle ground of trying to tend to both. any of those strategies has the potential to position you better in this ranking system that the head of Instagram is explaining how it works and gives you a better opportunity to share the story with more folks.
Third thing that you can do is lean into the advantages that churches have specifically. The first one is, as we've discussed ad nauseum, is your senior leader creating sermons every single week.
Right.
There's a ton of spiritual and creative effort there. If we acknowledge that the landscape of social is such that the supply outweighs the demand, what does that mean? If you are a creator, you are going to face resistance. And what happens when we face resistance? We give up. And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to create content this week. Like, I did all that work last week, and like, what did it even amount to? Because this is hard. And to be showing up consistently is becoming more difficult. So if the church has like the ideation process always taken care of, no matter what, if you don't publish social media content this week, you will have still had all the subject, all the source material ready for you. And you'll have it again next week, and again next week, and again next week. That's a huge advantage, especially in a landscape where you're just not as guaranteed to see those good results.
Yeah.
More people are going to give up. That's one advantage. The other advantage is that you as a church do not have just an online audience the way I do. You also have an in-person audience. And that in-person audience, again, is unique to churches. Like, sure, you are a dentist, you have like in-person patients, but like, that's not an audience.
Yes.
You are kind of exclusively working in the online arena, just like most industries are, not churches. So what can you do? There are measures and things that you can do on social that will give you more access to your actual congregation if they just turn on those settings. So one of the things that I would do, and we've talked about this before, is creating a pre-service slide that says on Instagram, add us to your favorites. Because what happens is when you add an account to your favorites in Instagram, that basically is like you saying, hey, forget about every ranking signal.
Show me everything.
Just show me the person all the time, no matter what, okay? I don't care if I didn't look at their post. I don't care if I didn't like it. Like, put it in the feed. I want to see it and put it high up in the feed. So if you do that, and you can get a good chunk of your church to be in that spot, now you can predictably reach the people that are following you.
Right.
What does this mean? This kind of like resets the table for the no promo code. Because if people are opting in and saying, I don't care if you, Instagram, deem that this content is trash, I want to see it.
People want to know what's going on at church. They don't want to be out of the loop.
Exactly. Maybe now you can get back into sharing time-sensitive updates because you know that, like, yeah, a good chunk of our in-person audience will see this because we have explained the importance and they have opted into it. Another thing that you can do is, we talked in a recent episode about the handoff strategy, which was a promotions framework for an ongoing big event in your church where you do an announcement on a Sunday and then you say, oh, by the way, we're going to have this incentive and some type of giveaway for Fall Festival. You'll get, $20 of credit to use at the food trucks at Fall Festival. You just got to answer a trivia question. And then the trivia question is like, what was last year's theme at Fall Festival?
Yeah.
And then you choose one winner. You do that for 6 weeks. And now you're training your church to be looking for your Instagram stories, to be looking for your content. And what you've done now is you have basically stoked the fire of your online audience by leveraging the in-person audience, a strength that a church has that almost no other. I can't do that. I have to work with what I have.
Yes.
I have strengths that are mine that are different, but your church has this strength. And I see, I know I talk a lot about like, hey, church, you have this advantage. And churches are like, yeah, but like relative to other organizations our size, we have no resources. And I'm like, I get it. But like, those things aren't changing. Let's really lock in and highlight and emphasize the advantages that you do have, because I see them so overlooked, and not just overlooked, but then squandered and not used. It's like, of course, there's no hope of making a difference if you're just going to like negate your strengths. It's like if you're a 7-footer in basketball, you know what? I don't want to rebound. You got to rebound, big man.
To take your fire analogy one step further, these efforts that you just highlighted, these practical strategies, do a good job of stoking the fire. And when that fire is stoked, when you've made momentum, it's just like tending a fire. You have to continue to put on like fresh hard wood onto the fire to keep it going. And that's the no weeks off strategy. So when you do, a handoff announcement campaign, you listen to last episode, you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like something we could do. Now you're listening to today's episode and you're like, okay, I'm paying attention. I'm going to do this. Fall Festival's coming up. We're doing it. You stoke that fire. Great. You're going to see momentum on Instagram with your church community. And once the fire's stoked, once it's burning, that accentuates the no weeks off kind of axiom. Like you have to keep going. You have to you don't have to keep going with your handoff campaign. You just have to keep going with being present and consistent on social.
And if that does feel overwhelming, this is why we have social sermons.
Right.
Because you already have the sermon content. It exists. Let us step in and repurpose that content every single week into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 posts. Let that be the foundation for what you do on social, so that when you want to do one of these like additional techniques, so we want to create the add to favorite slide, we want to do like a fun skit reel, we want to do this like bonus stuff, that on its own will not constitute a social strategy. It's great stuff that's interspersed, but the foundation is always going to be that sermon content, those reels, those carousels, those quotes that repurpose the journey of faith that you're going through week to week as a community. And so when we partner with churches, this is often the biggest asset for them, which is they can like clock out at the end of the week and know, okay, social was taken care of. I didn't have the inspiration or the time this week to like make something fun or different. That's okay. Maybe you'll want to do it next week or the week after. Maybe you'll want to do a promo, and the promo will actually perhaps reach the people that are following you because you've been publishing so much content that they're engaging with outside of that. All of those reasons exist. And so if you feel like, hey, this is just not possible for us, go to socialsermons.com before September 2nd, which is a Tuesday. You can enter the code 3FREE at checkout, get 3 months free on an annual plan. It's our best deal. So go and do that. We're happy to take over and do the heavy lifting for you on this side. And that will then help us navigate this more tricky landscape that we're facing right now. Another thing I want to highlight is understanding that you will almost never see the fruit of your work on social. That's not really exclusive to social. It's true of all the church work that we do, because we're dealing in these existential matters of faith and life change is very, very challenging to quantify. One example, I was talking with my pastor this week, and our church just hosted like this boxing event. Like there was an actual like ring,
Of course, why
in
not?
the church. And our church is like
On Sunday morning?
yeah. It was associate versus youth pastor. There was a budgeting change. We can only
Yes.
and so they had a contract hanging above the ring. Yeah. So my pastor was like, yeah, it was really cool. We've done this last year, and this year was really fun. He said one of the boxers came up to him. I think it was the winning boxer. And the boxer wins. He starts thanking Jesus. And we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. The boxer then comes up to Justin and he says, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but like this boxer was from the region, I guess. You used to pick me up in a yellow bus when I was younger, and I would go to church through your bus ministry. And I remember that bus ministry at our old church. Old church being like, it was a smaller campus of our big church that no longer exists. And we would run this bus ministry. And like all these kids and these students would be picked up from around the region, and then they would come to church on a Saturday night. And that was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And Justin and I are sitting in Starbucks, and he's like, that guy's life he said it was transformed. He didn't really come from this background. We would always go to like, the lower income housing units. So like, it's cool that like, look at what he's made of himself in his like vocation of choice. But like, I didn't know that. We always thought that bus ministry, like, is it worth the effort? Like, is it doing what we want? Like, you do these things in ministry and you just throw stuff against the wall and you're like, look, I'm doing what I think I'm meant to, and I don't get to see the fruit on this side of eternity. And every so often, we get like this really special moment where we get to see a glimpse of one person and how their life was affected by what we did. And sometimes it's a really amazing example like that. Sometimes it's like just someone that writes me and they say, hey, someone wrote me this week on Instagram. They're like, hey, we started doing no weeks off and now it's working. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, you get little things like that, right? Yeah. And so when you look at your social efforts, I really don't want you to be discouraged by this like drop in engagement. If you're seeing your numbers go down, like your job is to plant seeds, to take the word that we know does not return empty, and you just plant it. And one day you'll see all of the outcomes. And there are times during social's cycle where you're like, I can see the outcomes right in front of me. Like, look at these numbers, look at these comments, look at these DMs, look at these relationships that we're making. And other times you're like, oh, nothing's working. I promise you that's not true. It's still worth it. Just like it was still worth it showing up and preaching in church every single week when the landscape was changing in the West with people attending church. there was a period before we were born, everyone went to church. And then we were born and no one went to church.
What did we do?
Well, the millennials, we ruined a lot of things. And that doesn't mean that you stop preaching.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you stop doing the good work of the gospel. Keep planting those seeds.
Well, it's important to say, right? Because you could listen to a pragmatic episode of this show and think like, am I just being trained to be like a professional at posting to Instagram? And that's not it, right? Like what we're trying to do is guide you into being a good steward of the story. And it's in the intro of every show. It's the biggest communication shift in the last 500 years, the advent of the internet. And, you know, a few decades into the internet, like we may need to revisit that line at the intro of the show because it seems like there are these smaller technological shifts that are happening, whether it's discovery algorithm or generative AI. Like these shifts are occurring, and the story stays the same. And our job is to be stewards of the story by, like you've said, being faithful in sowing the seeds. So right now, yeah, it's a ripe opportunity to sow proverbial seeds of the story through Instagram. And that's the point, is to be a good steward of that. It's spiritually motivated. It's not just for the point of like being a good content creator on social.
And an extension of this, which is the final critical point that I'll make, is that remember, social media creator in a church, your job is not to be good at Instagram. My job as a business operator is not to be good at Instagram. My job is for the mission of this organization to be fulfilled. And I use Instagram as a platform to do that.
Yeah.
Your job is to see the mission of the church fulfilled, and we use these platforms to facilitate the fulfillment of that mission. I want to share another example here of not the church, but this Alex Hormozi character that I mentioned earlier. And if you're not familiar with this person, Alex Hormozi ran some businesses, and now he teaches people how to run businesses. So, you know, one of those like business people. This past week, couple weeks ago, he launched his new book. And he did a live stream. We're on the live stream. He had the Guinness Book of World Record people on standby. They then, like 6 hours into the live stream, after he had broken the record of most books sold in like, I was the first 48 hours, first week or whatever, he had sold 3 million books. They walk on and on the stream, present him with like, you have broken the record. We have confirmed it. Congratulations. Like, it was a landmark event for like just books, much less like internet creatorship. And then people were kind of talking about this. You know, there's a lot of commentary going on. And I saw this Instagram reel. I want you to listen to it.
Alex Hormozi has a big problem. He's a brilliant business thinker and creates over 400 pieces of content a month. He even has 1.4 million TikTok followers, but his recent videos haven't been getting many views. And there's 3 reasons I think it could be. Recently, he's been going hard with the promotion of his new book and encouraging people to click out of TikTok, which TikTok absolutely hate. And we know people on TikTok prefer authenticity over promotion a lot of the time. Now, I have a theory that accounts that use paid ads on TikTok often suffer when they stop doing the paid ads. Because if you compare these most recent videos to the first promotional videos, the views are 10x less. I'd love to know what you guys actually think this is. Stay authentic, try to keep people within the TikTok ecosystem, and if you want big organic reach, try to avoid using paid ads for as long as possible.
So this creator says at the end, his thesis is like, this is not the way you want to use TikTok. You want to be organic and be authentic and don't promote too much. And to be clear, Alex Hormozi promoted this book to like the nth degree. And you can see in any sprint promotion, which is what we would qualify this as, where you're just like straight up promoting for your one like big thing a year, your 1 or 2 big things a year. The longer and deeper you get into that sprint promotion, the more attention wanes.
Yeah.
But this creator is basically commenting and saying like, this is not how you're supposed to use social media. And then Alex Hormozi would say, I just sold the most books in the history of humankind in the Guinness Book of World Records.
I can handle my TikTok views going down.
Yeah. And this is a reflection of what I just said. Like, your job is not to be good at TikTok. Your job is not to be good at Instagram.
Yeah.
Now, that isn't to say you purposely use these platforms in the wrong way. It's a delicate balance because to have your mission fulfilled via these platforms, you have to use them the way that they were intended. But, and I have seen this happen to me, it's very easy to start using these platforms with the ultimate goal to be to succeed on the platform.
Right.
And then be like, wait, does this translate at all to like the business goals, or does this translate at all to the church's goals? Now, the nice thing about running a business is I have a lot of latitude because like, so long as I just continue to build attention and trust, I can pivot that into really anything. But for churches, I think you have like more reason to be like, yeah, you know what? We are going to run that add to favorite slide. We are going to make sure that the people in our congregation are extremely connected with our social platforms. And then we are going to post some time sensitive updates. And we recognize that we're not going to get broad reach with that. But guess what? It's not super easy to get broad reach anymore.
Right.
And so we're going to pivot and use the tools that exist on Instagram. And we're going to use it specifically in ways that work for our organization. So we're still going to use Instagram the way like it's meant to be used, but we're not going to use it the way that like most people use it. And will there be some sacrifice on reach? Yes, but that's actually not what we're optimizing for. We're optimizing for more participation, more next steps, more awareness and interest for our existing congregation. So like, this is kind of my grand thesis at the end of this, which is if supply and demand are where they are, and we do not have as much ability to reach these broad audiences predictably, we're not going to see 3 to 5% viral for me posts, which we did in 2023 and 2024. And I don't want to see like 2025 social media for church continued, where like the bulk of what we do, the highlights of what we do are these skit reels where they get circulated in the church space and we all just like keep copying each other. Like do those once every so often. But like if that's the peak of what we're doing, that's also probably not aligned with like fulfilling mission.
Right.
I think there is like opportunity for us to pivot and be like, okay, we have an in-person audience. There are tools that, yes, we have to leverage in a specific way. But if we do, we can start like using social to promote so long as we actually like do these things first. And yes, we're going to sacrifice this. But so long as it's going to be 0.5 to 1% viral for me posts, maybe there's less credence in that strategy and we can start pivoting a bit. This is me kind of spitballing at the end of a podcast where like you've listened all the way through to the end. And this is like, you know, on the real cutting edge of things. The great thing is that there is so much attention on these platforms. Yes, there's more competition, but you have these advantages and we can use those advantages to carve out spaces for us that allow us to fulfill the mission of the church. Does this mean we won't be as successful on Instagram? So be it. That's not what we're called to do anyway.
That's right. That's a good word for the moment that we're in.
Oh, and you're getting a phone call. So that's the perfect time to end this episode. Thanks so much for your time, attention, and trust. We will talk to you next week.
Tristan's asking Kyle how to run a mock draft yesterday.
Oh, this is good.
I think it's
This
good.
is really good. Yeah, because, fantasy football is nice because anyone can win. It's just random.
Yeah, Tristan and Roxanne both outperformed me last year.
Mitchell, last place.
Yes.
Spent about as much time as anyone.